In this lesson, we'll see the uses for the MIA material passes. So the MIA pass material is a new version of this architectural material that's found in Maya 2009. So this is a new version that is now fully compatible with the new render pass system that has been included as part of Maya 2009. However, you'll notice that the MIA material passes, as far as the attributes found in this particular shader, really it is identical to the attributes that are found in the material X. So really the only difference is that you would want to utilize this particular shader whenever rendering with Maya's new pass system found in 2009. So let's take a look at what we actually have as far as our render goes. So this is really what we have. Now, behind the scenes, whenever Mental Ray renders anything that has things like diffuse, reflection, all of these different components, these are actually rendered as separate threads in the background. So first it will go through a diffuse calculation to figure out surface color, then we'll do a reflection pass, then a refraction pass, and all of these other passes are then composited back together and displayed to us in the final render. Now what Maya 2009's new pass system will do is give us the ability to separate those threads out into separate images. So we have the ability to separate a diffuse pass, a specular pass, a reflection pass, refraction pass. We can output all of those in the same amount of time it would normally take us to just render one image, because we're not using any sort of extra calculation. All we're doing is just taking the data that Mental Rays calculates anyway and just outputs it into separate images. So let's take a look at how we can actually utilize this. In order to gain access to really the functionality of this, we need to first enable the render passes found in Maya 2009. So to do this, go to the render settings and check on the passes tab. Now let me go ahead and just expand my view just a little bit more so I can gain access to these buttons on the side. So this is where we actually set up the passes that we want to output. So let's click on this button and create the passes that we want. Now as far as the passes that are compatible with this MIA material pass shader, there are really just a few that are compatible. So if we pull up just a quick little Word document here, we can see exactly what those are. So we've got these listed out. We can do a beauty pass, we can do a diffuse pass, we can do direct irradiance, indirect, reflection and refraction passes, as well as a specular and a translucence pass. Alright, so keep in mind that these are the only passes that are, as of Maya 2009, compatible with this particular shader. Alright, all the rest of these passes, however, should be compatible with the normal Maya materials. So let's go ahead and set these up for our material pass. So let's do a beauty pass, and I can just press and hold the control key to add multiple passes simultaneously. So I'll do a diffuse pass. For demonstration's sake, we can also do a direct irradiance. We can do an indirect pass, so that way we can factor in final gather and global illumination data. And we'll also do reflection and refraction, as well as a specular. Now in this case we really don't have any translucence set up, so we won't be able to see any kind of a translucent effect if we were to add this. So let's go ahead and create this. There we go, there's our passes that have now been created. Now before they can actually be used, really you can think of this more as like a holding bin for the passes that we have available to us. Right now they're not being actually utilized until we move them down into the associated passes. Once they're down here, then they'll be calculated at render time. So let's go ahead and, with all these selected, we'll move these down, and now they will be utilized. Alright, so once we actually have this set up, we just now need to determine exactly how these will be output. So these can be output in any kind of a format, something as simple as a bitmap image. This will show us where exactly these nodes, or rather these passes, will wind up. So we can call this something like passes. And then if we want, we can actually give these some kind of a prefix to determine the actual pass that we are going to get out. So right now, if we were to just simply render this, we would get a new folder for each pass. So we would get a folder labeled diffuse, and then the pass image inside of that. We would get another folder named specular, and so on and so forth. Now if we really wanted to just keep these in one folder, all we would need to do is just simply right click here in our file output name and insert some kind of a pass name. There we go. And now you can see that we will instead now get a file named passes_. specular or passes underscore diffuse, and so on and so forth. Now, to actually render these out, all we have to do is go to the rendering menu, go to render, and batch render this out. Alright, so once that render is complete, we can now take a look inside the directory that we've output these images to. And we should be able to find all of our different passes right here for us. So here's the beauty pass that we have. So that's really the composited composition as far as the specular, reflection, refraction, so on and so forth. We also have as a separate pass now our diffuse color, so really just the diffuse or direct lighting information. We also have the direct irradiance, which is really just looking at light intensity without any regard for color or texture. We also have the indirect illumination, so this can hold final gather, global illumination, or caustics information. We also have reflections, we have refractions, we have speculars. All of this was able to be output in the same amount of time that this one singular image was output. So this is really the benefit of using this render pass system and being able to fully utilize this by using the pass material. Now, before I wrap up this lesson, there is one very, very important limitation that I want to mention about this pass material. And that is that as of Maya 2009, this pass material is not able to compute photon interactions. So if you have a scene that is having things like global illumination or caustics that need to interact with this pass material, there is right now, as of Maya 2009, a bug in which this is not able to take place. So really something that is very critical to keep in mind. So as a result, here's sort of the workaround that I would recommend doing. You can take any sort of an MIA material X, and its photon interactions will be calculated properly. So we could always take this and make sure that our secondary MIA-X material matches the attributes that we've set up in the pass system, and then just simply take this into the shading group and connect this as the photon shader. Now the photon interactions will behave properly whenever we render out our passes. Now the problem is that whenever utilizing this method, we do have to go through the additional steps of making sure that this second photon material does match the major attributes that we've set up in here, just so that we can make sure that the photons do look correct. So as a way of avoiding that, here is a workaround that I would actually recommend doing. Instead of starting with your scene as far as starting with the MIA-X passes, what I actually prefer to do is to start by setting up my scene utilizing the X material. So with this, I can go ahead and get all of my material attributes set up. Just for a quick demonstration, we can do something like a quick physical glass. Alright, now as of right now, the photon interactions will behave properly on this material. The problem is that we can't utilize this for pass output. So what we can actually do with any kind of an MIA-X material or just a standard MIA material is we can actually convert this or upgrade the shader to a pass version. So what we actually do, or what I typically like to do, is to take this material, duplicate it, so that way we have two identical materials, take one of these, upgrade it to the pass version of that shader. So now we have a pass version that can be utilized with the pass system, but it won't be able to interact properly with photons. Not a problem, because now we have an identical version of that, of the MIA-X material. So if I go back and expose the input and output connections, all we have to do is take the MIA-X pass material and make sure we take its shading group. In this case, we actually may need to connect this up instead of the MIA-X into the photon. We may just need to take this duplicate material and connect that into the material shader. So there we go. Now we have one shading group that's able to output passes and interact correctly with photons. So again, just to recap, I would recommend starting with this node, get your material set up, get the photon interactions working properly, because really this pass node won't come into play until it comes time to output your different render passes. So as a very last step, once you have all the material set up correctly, we can duplicate the X material, duplicate it, convert it to a pass version, connect it back into the shading group, and then we have the best of both worlds. So that's a look at how we can utilize this MIA-X pass material.